I'm the woman everyone's making fun of online, and honestly, I deserve some of it, but not for the reasons we think. There's a screenshot floating around where I told my ex-boyfriend I could do better after losing weight. And now, I'm apparently the poster child for karma. What people don't know is what I actually meant when I said those words, or what he did right after I said them. My entire social circle thinks I'm getting exactly what I asked for. Single at 30, living alone with 2 cats, watching him get engaged to someone who looks like she walked off a magazine cover. My best friend Jenna won't return my calls. My mother sends me articles about freezing eggs. But they all think this is about vanity and arrogance, when the truth is so much messier than that. The reality is that I destroyed the best relationship I ever had because I couldn't tell the difference between confidence and cruelty. I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened, including the part where I said something far worse than what's in that screenshot. I need you to understand the whole story before you decide I'm the villain everyone thinks I am. Because what I actually told Derek that night would make that viral post look kind of tame in comparison. I met Derek when I was 25 and working at a marketing firm downtown. He was an accountant at the same building, and we'd see each other in the elevator sometimes. I was probably 40 pounds heavier then, struggling with my weight since college, and deeply convinced that I was invisible to men like him. Tall, athletic, the kind of guy who played recreational soccer on weekends and had his life together. So when he asked me out for coffee after a particularly awkward elevator ride, where we were the only 2 people and the silence became unbearable, I genuinely thought it was a pity invitation. I said yes anyway, because I was lonely and he seemed nice, and I figured one coffee couldn't hurt, even if it went nowhere. That coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a second date, then a third. Within 2 months, we were officially together, and I spent most of that time waiting for him to realize he'd made a mistake. I'd catch myself in mirrors when we were out together, wondering what people thought when they saw us. He was objectively attractive. I was objectively not. Derek never made me feel that way, though. He'd tell me I was beautiful when I was lying in bed with no makeup, wearing his old t-shirt. He'd grab my hand in public, without hesitation. When I made self-deprecating jokes about my appearance, which I did constantly, he'd get this sad look on his face and tell me I needed to be kinder to myself. We moved in together after a year. His apartment was bigger, and it made financial sense. I remember thinking how surreal it was to be living with someone who genuinely seemed to want me there. My previous relationship had been with a guy who'd hidden me from his friends and family for 6 months before I finally got the hint. 2 years into our relationship, I decided to get serious about weight loss. Not because Derek ever suggested it, he never did, but because I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living on borrowed time. That eventually he'd wake up and see what everyone else clearly saw, that we didn't match. I started going to the gym before work, counted calories religiously, cut out entire food groups. The weight came off slowly at first, then faster. Derek was supportive, in the way you'd expect a good boyfriend to be. He'd make healthy dinners with me, never complained when I turned down restaurant invitations. Told me he was proud of how dedicated I was. What I didn't tell him was that I'd started imagining a different life. With every pound I lost, with every time I had to buy smaller jeans, I'd catch myself wondering what it would be like to be single at this new size. To walk into a bar and have men notice me. To have options I'd never had before. The thought would pop into my head at random moments. While Derek was loading the dishwasher after dinner, while we were watching TV on the couch, his arm around my shoulders. While we were having sex, I'd think, is this really what I want forever? By the time I'd lost 45 pounds, more than my initial goal, I was a different person physically. Same face, Same personality, but in a body I barely recognized. Strangers held doors for me. Men at the gym asked if I needed help with equipment. A barista wrote his number on my coffee cup. Derek noticed the attention. How could he not? But he trusted me, because I'd given him no reason not to. We'd been together for 3 years at that point. We talked about marriage sometimes, in that vague future-planning way couples do. He'd mentioned looking at rings. I should have been happy. I had a man who loved me at my heaviest and celebrated my success at my lightest, who supported every goal I set and never made me feel like I wasn't enough, exactly as I was. Instead, I felt trapped, like I'd locked myself into this relationship before I knew what I could have, before I knew what I was worth. The thought that kept circling my brain was, I settled. I didn't know any better, but I settled. I started picking fights about stupid things. The way he loaded the dishwasher. How he never wanted to go out dancing. That he was content with his job instead of being ambitious. I was rewriting our entire history, painting him as boring and complacent, when the truth was, he was stable and kind. Jenna noticed the change. We were out for drinks one night, just the two of us, and she asked me point blank if everything was okay with Derek. It's fine, I said, which is what people say when things are decidedly not fine. You've been complaining about him a lot lately, she said carefully. It's not like you. I should have recognized this as the warning it was. Should have examined why I was suddenly finding fault with someone I'd loved for 3 years. Instead, I downed my martini and said, do you ever think about what your life would be like if you'd made different choices? Sure, Jenna said. Everyone does. But you can't live in hypotheticals, Mel. You'll make yourself miserable. Too late for that. I started dressing differently. More form-fitting clothes, lower necklines. I told myself it was just confidence from the weight loss. That I was finally dressing for the body I'd worked so hard to get. Derek complimented the new style. Seemed genuinely happy that I felt good about myself. Then, I created a Tinder profile. Just to look, I told myself. Just to see what was out there. I didn't use any photos with Derek in them, obviously. My profile said I was single. I matched with dozens of guys within the first hour. Successful guys, attractive guys. Guys who probably wouldn't have swiped right on the old version of me. I didn't message any of them, not at first, but I'd scroll through the matches at night, while Derek was asleep beside me, feeling this toxic mixture of validation and guilt. This went on for 2 weeks before I actually started a conversation with someone. His name was Tyler. He was a lawyer, and his opening message was clever enough that I responded. We messaged back and forth for a few days. Nothing explicitly inappropriate, but definitely flirtatious. Definitely crossing a line. Derek found out by accident. He borrowed my phone to check something when his was charging in the other room. And a Tinder notification popped up. Tyler asking when we could meet for that drink we'd been talking about. I watched Derek's face change as he read the message. The confusion first. Then the understanding. Then something I'd never seen in his eyes when he looked at me before. Hurt. What is this? He asked, holding up the phone. I could have lied. Could have made up some excuse about it being old. From before we met. Something wrong with the app. Instead, I doubled down in the worst possible way. We need to talk, I said. We sat on the couch. The same couch where we'd spent countless nights together. Where he'd held me while I cried about work stress. Where we'd made plans for the future, and I ended our relationship with a speech I'd apparently been preparing in my subconscious for months. I love you, I started, which is the cruelest way to begin a breakup. But I don't think we're right for each other anymore. Derek just stared at me, waiting. When we met, I was in a different place, I continued. God, I can still hear my own voice saying these words, and it makes me want to throw up. I didn't have a lot of options. I didn't feel good about myself. And you were so kind to me when I needed kindness. Mel, what are you saying? This was the moment I should have stopped, recognized the ugliness of what I was about to articulate, and chosen literally any other words. Instead, I said, I'm saying I think I can do better now. The silence that followed felt like it lasted hours. Derek's face went completely blank, which somehow felt worse than if he'd yelled. He repeated finally. Not a question, just the word, hanging there, between us. That came out wrong. No, he stood up. No, I think it came out exactly right. You think you can do better than me now that you're skinny. It's not about you, it's about me figuring out. If you met me today, would you date me? He asked. I hesitated. For just a second, but long enough for him to see the answer on my face. Got it, he said. He went into our bedroom and came out with his phone and wallet. I'm gonna stay at my brother's tonight. We can figure out the apartment situation later. Derek, can we just talk about this? He looked at me like I was a stranger. You know what the really fucked up part is? I was going to propose next month. I had the ring picked out and everything. I was just waiting for your work project to finish, so you wouldn't be stressed. Then he left. I didn't cry immediately. I sat on that couch, feeling this weird sense of relief, mixed with panic. I'd done it. I'd gotten out. I was free to explore these new possibilities, to see what I could attract, now that I looked the way I'd always wanted to look. It's sad, but it was time. If you say so. She didn't sound convinced. You want me to come over? No, I think I need to just sit with this for a bit. After we hung up, I opened Tinder and messaged Tyler back. We made plans to meet that Friday. Derek came back the next day to start packing his things. We were civil, almost friendly. In that horrible way you are when you're trying to prove the breakup is mature and mutual. He took his clothes, his books, his PlayStation, left behind the furniture we bought together. Because I'd need it, he said. For what it's worth, he said as he was carrying the last box out. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I wanted to say something meaningful. Something that would preserve some dignity in this situation. But all I managed was, thanks. My date with Tyler was fine. He was attractive in person, charming, successful. We had drinks at a trendy bar, talked about our jobs, laughed at each other's stories. At the end of the night, he kissed me outside my apartment building. And I felt nothing. But I chalked that up to the weirdness of dating someone new after 3 years. I later found out through Instagram that he'd gotten back together with his ex-girlfriend. I tried not to let it bother me. There were plenty of other matches, other guys interested. I went on dates with a financial consultant, a personal trainer, a guy who owned a startup I'd never heard of. They were all attractive, all successful, all completely interchangeable. None of them were Derek. I started seeing Jenna less. Not intentionally at first, we were both busy, but then I realized I was avoiding her, because she'd ask how I was doing, and I didn't want to admit that my grand adventure into the world of options wasn't going as planned. My friend Sarah from work tried to set me up with her husband's friend. He's great, she promised. Stable job, wants a relationship, really kind guy. I went. He was nice. We had nothing in common. I spent the whole dinner comparing him to Derek and finding him lacking in ways I couldn't even articulate. 6 months after the breakup, I ran into Derek at a coffee shop downtown. My stomach dropped when I saw him in line ahead of me. He looked good, happy even. He was with a woman I didn't recognize, brunette, athletic build, laughing at something he'd said. He saw me as he was leaving. There was this moment of eye contact where I could see him decide whether to acknowledge me. He chose to. "Hey Mel," he said. Polite, distant. "Hi, how are you?" "Good, really good, actually." He glanced at the woman he was with, who was waiting by the door. "Take care of yourself." That was it. 30 seconds after 3 years together. I went home and cried for the first time since the breakup. Not gentle tears. Ugly, snotty sobbing that I couldn't control. I'd made a terrible mistake. I knew it suddenly and completely. The way you know you've just rear-ended someone the second before impact. I texted him that night, "Can we talk?" He responded the next morning, "I don't think that's a good idea. I'm seeing someone." The woman from the coffee shop, presumably. I wanted to ask how long, if it was serious, if there was any chance he'd consider giving us another shot. Instead, I wrote, "I understand. I'm happy for you. Thanks. I hope things are going well for you." They weren't. I was going on dates with men who didn't call back, having mediocre sex with guys whose last names I barely remembered, and coming home to an empty apartment that still had Derek's furniture in it. I'd gotten exactly what I'd asked for, the chance to see what else was out there, and it turned out the answer was nothing as good as what I'd had. But I couldn't admit that to anyone, especially not to myself. I adopted my first cat, Luna. Around the 9-month mark post-breakup. I told myself it was because I'd always wanted a cat, and Derek was allergic. Really, it was because coming home to complete silence had become unbearable. My dates became less frequent. The guys on Tinder who'd seemed so excited to match with me had moved on to newer profiles, shinier options. I was still getting matches, but they were different now. Guys who were obviously looking for hookups. Men with grainy profile pictures and vague job descriptions. One night, slightly drunk on wine and self-pity, I did something I'd sworn I wouldn't do. I looked at Derek's Instagram. He'd been private before, but apparently he'd made his account public at some point. The woman from the coffee shop, her name was Alexis, according to the tags, appeared in multiple recent posts. Derek hiking, Derek at a wedding, Derek at what appeared to be Alexis's family Christmas. They looked happy. Not performatively happy in that desperate way some couples are on social media, but genuinely comfortable together. Easy. I scrolled back further, to photos from when we were still together. There weren't many. Derek had never been big on social media, but there were a few. One of us at a friend's barbecue. One from a trip we'd taken to the mountains. In every single one, I looked uncomfortable, like I was trying to hide my body even though I was smiling. God, I'd been so unhappy with myself, and I'd blamed Derek for that unhappiness, because it was easier than dealing with my own issues. A year after our breakup, Jenna finally confronted me over brunch. "You need to get honest with yourself," she said. "About what?" "About Derek. About why you really broke up with him." She put down her mimosa and looked at me seriously. "You told me it was because you'd grown apart. But Sarah told me what you actually said to him." My stomach dropped. Sarah doesn't know anything about it. Derek's brother is married to Sarah's cousin. It's a small world, Mel. Jenna's expression was disappointed in a way that hurt more than anger would have. "You really told him you could do better?" There was no point in denying it. I was in a weird headspace. The weight loss messed with my head. "That's a cop-out, and you know it. You treated him like he was some consolation prize you'd accepted when you thought you couldn't get anything else." "That's not," I started, but she cut me off. "It is, though. And the worst part is you're still not taking responsibility for it. You're still acting like this just happened to you. Like you're the victim of bad luck or bad timing, instead of your own shitty choices." I wanted to defend myself, but what could I say? She was right. "He's engaged," Jenna said. "Did you know that?" I felt like I'd been punched. "To Alexis?" "Yep. Derek's brother posted about it last week. I didn't want to tell you, but clearly you need a reality check." I made it through the rest of brunch on autopilot, then went home and looked at Instagram again. Sure enough, there it was, a photo of Alexis holding up her left hand, a simple but elegant ring visible, Derek's arms around her from behind. The caption, "She said yes. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments congratulating them. I adopted my second cat the next day. Mr. Whiskers, because apparently my life had become a parody of itself. That's when someone found the screenshot. I'm still not sure who. Maybe one of Derek's friends. Maybe someone from that wedding photo I'd seen. But suddenly my worst moment was public. Someone had screenshotted my message telling Derek I could do better, added commentary about karma and cosmic justice, and posted it to Twitter. It went viral. Not like celebrity-level viral, but viral enough that people I knew started seeing it. Friends sent it to me with, "OMG, is this you?" messages. People from my high school commented on it. My mom called me crying because her church friends had seen it. The worst part was the comments. Thousands of people weighing in on my character based on one screenshot, calling me shallow, arrogant, delusional, making jokes about me ending up alone with cats, which was particularly brutal because it was literally true. Someone found my Instagram and started cross-posting my photos to the thread, comparing how I looked now to photos of Alexis. "He definitely upgraded," one comment read, with 3,000 likes. I made my Instagram private, but the damage was done. The story had taken on a life of its own. Woman tells loving boyfriend she can do better after losing weight, ends up single and alone while he gets engaged to a gorgeous woman. It was a morality play about vanity and hubris, and I was the villain. What none of them knew, what the screenshot didn't show, was what I'd said right before that line. The fuller context that somehow made it even worse. Derek and I had been arguing for about an hour by that point. He'd found the Tinder messages. I'd tried to explain, and it had devolved into this horrible back and forth, where he kept asking me why, and I kept dodging. Finally, he'd said, "Just tell me the truth. What is it? Did I do something wrong?" And I'd responded, "You didn't do anything wrong. You were perfect. That's kind of the problem." How is that a problem? Because I met you when I was fat and desperate and didn't think I could get anyone better. And you were so nice to me. So I said yes, even though you weren't really what I wanted. I settled. And now, I don't have to settle anymore. The screenshot only showed the "I can do better" part, but the full quote, the part about him not being what I wanted, about settling, about only being with him because I thought I couldn't do better, that was the real ugliness I'd been hiding. Derek had just looked at me after I said it. His face had done this thing where I could literally see him recalibrating every memory we'd shared. 3 years of relationship reframed in an instant as him being someone's backup plan. "So none of it was real," he'd said quietly. "Not from your side. That's not what I'm saying. That's exactly what you're saying. You were with me because you thought you had to be, and now you think you don't have to be anymore." I tried to backtrack, to explain that I had loved him, that it wasn't that simple. But how could I expect him to believe anything I said after that? The viral post hit 2 months ago. Since then, I've lost about a third of my Instagram followers, gotten unfriended by several people who were Derek's friends first, and become a cautionary tale in internet comment sections. Work has been awkward because some people there have seen it. They don't say anything directly, but I catch them looking at me differently, like they're reassessing everything they thought they knew about me. I'm still single. The dates have stopped completely, partially because my confidence is shot, partially because I'm terrified anyone I meet has seen the screenshot and recognized me. Last week, I saw the engagement photos, professional ones posted to Alexis's Instagram. Her in a white dress, Derek in a dark suit, both of them laughing in a field of wildflowers. They looked like a J. Crew ad. They looked perfect together. I didn't feel jealous exactly. It was more like grief for a version of my life that I'd destroyed before I realized what I had. Derek had been right there, loving me, wanting to build a future with me, and I'd treated him like he was some temporary situation I'd been forced into. The comments on the engagement photos were full of people who clearly knew our history. "So happy you found someone who appreciates you. You deserve someone who sees your worth." Not subtle. I wanted to comment something, anything, to acknowledge what I'd done and apologize. But what could I possibly say that wouldn't sound self-serving. Sorry I was horrible to you, but I'm happy you found someone better. It would just make it about me again. Jenna and I are barely speaking. She doesn't think I've taken any real accountability, and she's probably right. Every time I try to explain the headspace I was in, how the weight loss messed with my self-perception, she says I'm making excuses. Lots of people lose weight without becoming awful, she pointed out last time we talked. This isn't about the weight. It's about who you are as a person. My therapist, yes, I finally got a therapist, has been trying to help me untangle why I did what I did. We've talked about self-worth and self-sabotage, about how I destroyed the relationship because some part of me didn't believe I deserved it. But I did deserve it, I told her last session. That's what I'm realizing now. Derek was good to me. He loved me. And I threw it away because I was so convinced that I was settling. I couldn't see that he was actually a catch, and I was the one punching above my weight. You're still framing this in terms of who's better than whom, she observed. That's the same mindset that got you here. She's right, of course. I'm still ranking people, still thinking about relationships as trading up or settling. I haven't actually learned anything. The dating apps are deleted now. Not as some noble gesture of growth, but because I can't handle the rejection. I'll match with someone, start talking, and then they'll recognize me. Wait, aren't you that girl from Twitter? And ghost. I turned 30 last month. Spent it alone with Luna and Mr. Whiskers, eating Thai food and watching Netflix. My mom called and tried to be upbeat, but I could hear the concern in her voice. My parents always liked Derek. They'd been hoping we'd get married. There's still time to meet someone, Mom said, which is something people say when they're worried there isn't. I've started seeing the posts about Derek and Alexis's wedding planning. She posted a photo of bridesmaid dresses last week. They're getting married next spring, apparently. I'll probably see the photos whether I want to or not. Sometimes I compose messages to Derek in my head. Long explanations about how I was wrong, how I'm sorry, how I finally understand what I threw away. But what would be the point? It wouldn't change anything. It would just be me making him responsible for absolving my guilt. He's moved on. He's happy. He found someone who appreciates him from the start, who doesn't see him as a consolation prize. He got the ending I denied us both when I decided I could do better. The irony isn't lost on me. I spent so much time convinced I was settling for Derek, and it turns out he was the one who'd settled for me. He was the one who could have done better. And once I freed him from the relationship, he did. I look at myself in the mirror now, still thin, still put together on the outside, and I see someone different than I did 2 years ago. The weight loss didn't make me a better person. It just gave me the confidence to show who I really was underneath someone shallow enough to rank human beings. Cruel enough to tell someone who loved me that they weren't good enough. The viral post is still circulating. I saw it pop up again last week with fresh comments. People who don't know me weighing in on what kind of person I am based on one screenshot. And the thing is, they're not wrong. I am that person. Maybe not entirely, but enough that the label fits. I'm telling this story now because Derek's wedding is in 6 months, and I know when it happens, the viral post will make the rounds again. Someone will dig it up, add wedding photos as an update, and the whole internet will celebrate his happy ending and my just desserts. And I'll deserve it. Not because I lost weight and got confident, that part was fine, but because I treated someone's love like it was worthless until I thought I could trade it in for something better. Because I made every choice that led me here, and I'm only sorry now that I can see the consequences. I didn't lose Derek because of karma or cosmic justice. I lost him because I told him to his face that I'd only been with him because I thought I couldn't do better, and that now I wanted to try. Those are words you can't take back. They're words that change how someone sees every moment you shared. I could do better, I told him. Turns out I was wrong about that in every possible way. He's the one who did better, and I'm the one who ended up exactly where I put myself, alone at 30, posting pictures of my cats on Instagram, watching the man I threw away build a life with someone who actually deserves him. So yeah, the viral post has it basically right. I'm just adding the context that makes it worse. That's my confession, my accountability, my admission that everyone judging me is probably being too generous. I wasn't just shallow or stupid. I was cruel in that specific way you can only be cruel to someone who loves you. I see Derek's face sometimes, right after I said those words. The way he looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time and wishing he wasn't. I'll probably see that expression in my head for the rest of my life. That's what I deserve, I think, not the viral shaming or the lost friendships or the loneliness. Those are just consequences. What I deserve is to remember forever what it looks like when you break someone's heart by telling them they were never good enough to begin with.